Okay, okay, I'm recording now. Okay, so I want to talk about 8th grade math, and I'm Ivy Kong. There is another teacher, and she is Miss Hooper. She also teaches 8th grade. So some of you will have your students in Miss Hooper's class, and she's super awesome. So if you have any questions about her class, well, we do very similar things between the two of us, but especially if you want to ask about her rock climbing, just send her an email. Okay, so the difference between the two courses. So I teach both Math 8 and IM1. Math 8 is our grade level course, and we are currently working on geometry. And the students are doing a lot of hands-on rotation, transformation, and they're enjoying it. And then for integrated math 1, which is our accelerated level math, and that is equivalent to the freshman integrated math at the high school. Right now we're finishing up chapter 1, and I was just telling them that, oh, they're going to get a quiz next week. So we have done a lot of equations. So they will notice that some of the stuff that they have done, some of the stuff they have seen before in previous grade levels. And then I also mix in some new stuff. And then from now on, it's going to be a lot of topics that they haven't seen yet. Since I only have 5 minutes, so I just want to cut to the part that I feel is very important. Now, in order to help your student to be successful, they need to be checking Google Classroom like daily. So on Google Classroom, Ms. Hooper and I think a lot of teachers too, we put our assignments on Google Classroom. And so long as there is a due date, it will get onto the students' to-do list. So every day, they really should just go to Google Classroom, and the first thing they check should be the to-do list, and it lists all their assignments with different due date, like what is missing and what is done. So this will be a great way for you to keep track of what your students doing in school. And then another part other than the to-do list is also on Google Classroom is the classwork tab. So this is where the teachers put the materials in. Like for math, well, every one of us put the week at a glance for our subject. And then for math, we put some more material in there and also homework too. And as for what the week at a glance is, so now this one is from Ms. Hooper, and mine is extremely similar, almost identical. So each week we'll basically post like a weekly plan, a very simplified form of our weekly plan that detail what we're doing on each day. And of course, talk about assignment just briefly. And you see that at the bottom here, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but at the bottom, you see the Google slide. So Ms. Hooper and I both will post our lesson slide on our week at a glance as well. So in case if your student missed any school, then you can just check that slide, even though it does not have instruction, but at least it gives you an idea on what we are doing that day in class. So just to keep up with the class. Now, again, both Ms. Hooper and I assign our homework mainly from a platform called Delta Math. Right now, I think the students are doing okay because for Math 8, we're doing something very intuitive. I feel that they should be handling fine. And then IM1, they're working on equations, so it might be a little bit more challenging. And I just need to point this out, is on the platform itself, it has help video there. So if your kid just like look at the question and does not know how to start, then go ahead and watch that video. It will really clear a lot of things up. And of course, if that does not help, then talk to the teacher. I was going to talk about this, but then I want to give my time to the next person. And thank you for listening. And again, if you need anything from me or Ms. Hooper, just send us email and we'll get back to you. And my next teacher is PE, so Mr. Dory.
Hi, good evening. My name is Chip Dory. I do not have a slideshow like Mrs. Kong, but I do have some notes that I will be following along for tonight. Um, so I am the 8th grade PE teacher. I also teach 7th grade. All our PE classes are combined with 7th and 8th grade students. So shortly after I speak with you tonight, I'm going to need to head over and speak with our 7th grade parents as well. But a little about myself. I grew up here on the Monterey Peninsula, and I worked at PG Middle School for more than 10 years, probably between 10 and 15 years, but I've done a lot of different things for the school and the school district. I graduated from CSUMB in 2001. I actually had an international business degree. Well, how did I end up teaching PE? I've been an athlete my whole life. When I was 25 years old, I started working for the state parks as an ocean lifeguard and ended up teaching our junior lifeguard program. And I ended up running that program for quite some time. And so that program is quite near and dear to my heart. And there's a lot of similarities between junior lifeguards and teaching PE. But that program kind of led me into teaching, and sort of to make the long story short, here I am. One of my approaches to teaching PE, I'm going to sort of relate to a quote from a book I read this summer. Maybe some of you know who Laird Hamilton is. Maybe some of you don't. He's an ocean sports athlete and a pioneer, also married to a professional volleyball player. He states that movement is key to life, and our bodies were designed to move. And that's really kind of one of my philosophies about PE. It's that one class that kids can come to during the day, and they get to be outside, running around, and playing. And I think that's such an important thing for kids at this middle school age. I also believe that exercise and sports can help students in all areas of their life. It helps improve learning. It reduces stress and anxiety. It improves our mood. It improves concentration and increases energy levels. I know not all middle school kids need increased energy levels, but increases my energy level. But anyways, I also want students to be able to try new things in PE. It's a great opportunity at this age for students to try things they haven't tried before. They can challenge themselves, create some body awareness as they're growing and developing, set goals and reach those goals, be supportive of other students in class and each other, but also find some success and then have fun. That's a really important part of PE. We achieve these outcomes in PE through a lot of different sports and activities that include ultimate frisbee, which is our unit sport that we're doing right now. We will play volleyball next quarter. We'll play basketball. We'll do track and field, soccer, yoga, jumping rope, strength, fitness, and flexibility lessons. And the way we do it is each quarter, those students are broken into teams. And so each quarter, they'll get a new group of students that they'll work with through these different activities. So they'll play the unit sports together. They'll inquire on fitness related topics together. They'll have some problem solving activities that we've already done up to this point. But then they'll also create together. And more specifically, they have a team game that they build and create together in the spring, which is probably one of the most fun activities that I watch them do based on a lot of the learning that's happened up to that point. But also some other topics that are included in PE at PGMS, nutrition, understanding heart rate in relation to exercise level of intensity, injury prevention, healthy relationships, the dangers of drugs and alcohol in our health unit. And then our health unit covers puberty, reproduction, STIs, and that's in the spring. And they'll also take the California fitness test in the spring as well. In terms of grading, Synergy is our grading program. I know everybody's just getting used to that grading program. I'm getting used to it, struggling with it a little bit. But I update that once a week, usually on Thursdays and Fridays. And then Google Classroom is also my main form of communication, and I would suppose probably most of the other teachers' main form of communication.
30-second warning.
Okay, almost done. The course description for PE lives in Google Classroom. That covers all the ins and outs of PE. And so that will be there for reference all the time for you. I suggest kids check that a couple times a week for reinforcement, for updated material, and so on. And then if you need to contact me, email's great. I check that regularly. And I'm really looking forward to having our kids back this year in person. Is really wonderful for PE. So thank you for your time and listening, and take care.
Thank you, Mr. Dory.
Thank you.
Okay, now it is 8th grade science. Mrs. McBride.
I am Lisa McBride. I am one of the 2 8th grade science teachers at Pacific Grove Middle School. We also have Monica Parsons, who is also a 6th grade teacher. So she is in the 6th grade meeting right now. But Monica and I, we are pretty much in sync. Right now, all the 8th graders are learning about, Ms. Kong, DNA, traits, genes, heredity, Punnett squares, mutations, and evolution. So our unit for the year is kind of broken down into 3 main categories. As you can see, the first one is called How Things Change Over Time. Then we will be moving into Our Place in Space and finishing up, Ms. Kong, with How Things Move. So as you can see, yeah, these are kind of like the highlight topics that we cover throughout the whole school year. The last one, probably the How Things Move, doesn't really start until about February, March. Let's see. Go ahead, Ms. Kong. All right. So the main thing students care about is homework. How much am I going to get? Well, it's usually a couple nights a week. Right now it's running 2 or 3, usually Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are the nights. And it's very small. We started in class because that will allow me to help anybody who has any questions before they leave the room. And so I encourage the kids to kind of get started on the homework in class. I'm there then to answer anything they need so that they can be successful getting it done overnight. We usually do small quizzes rather than large tests, and we do a lot of group work. So even though 8th grade science isn't a lot of lab per se work, it is a lot of hands-on activities and small group activities. So there is a little bit more socializing going on this year than obviously last year, because they do need to work together. And Ms. Kong is just zipping me right along. So how can you help as a parent? Well, I realize that, yeah, this is very different. But number one, if you don't know how to get on Synergy, start there. And click as many things as Synergy is going to let you click, because you're going to see the kids' classes, you're going to see their grades. And then I believe if you even click the class, you'll see individual assignments. We use our calendar. All students received an agenda calendar at the beginning of the school year, and we write in it every day. And I stamp it and check it daily. So if you have questions, ask to see their calendars. And then of course, you know, I'm just like, hey, Ms. Kong, come on. I'm just like Ms. Kong, where if I give the students a worksheet in class, I upload the same worksheet to Google Classroom for kids who are absent, kids that are at doctor's appointments and miss class, kids who have left their homework in their locker and now we're at home without it. So it really helps by looking at. Not a lot of assignments done on Google Classroom digitally, mostly just paper in case they need it later. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. All right, Ms. Kong, I'm done. Thank you.
You still have 1 minute and 32 seconds.
I'm gonna give mine to Mr. Gamble because we know how long-winded he is.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I am Bryce Gamble. I teach 5 of the sections for 8th grade US history, and Ms. Gall, who most of you probably know from last year from 7th grade, she teaches 1 section. And if you can move me to the next slide. Hey, that's a funny Far Side cartoon that none of your children understand or think is funny. Next one, Ms. Kong. Okay, so we try to start class like this when we can, especially a new unit, something like this. This is from the during the Reconstruction for the Civil War, but we try to make analogies because it's kind of so hard to catch, or for the students to think about something that happened 150 years ago. So if you were a parent and one of your children ran away, what would you do once the child had been returned? Would you, one, punish the child to discourage them from running away, or two, accept a promise from the child that they would never run away again? Often the students will say, well, number two is fine, accept a promise. Well, this is an analogy for Reconstruction. So the South was broken away from the North. They fought the Civil War and brought them back. And then all students, switched their answer to number one. Next slide, Ms. Kong, please. We try to do a lot of teaching kind of different ways to catch the students. I always like this quote about differentiation. Fortunately, our images of school are almost factory images, so school is very standardized, but as we all know, kids don't come in standard issue, which, next slide, please, is why we try to do a bunch of different ones. But the main one we do, social cognitive learning theory. So that we tend to kind of think of that as group work, but it's not really group work. It's not the thing that all of us in here probably grew up with, where you're in the group and you're all doing, some of us are doing more work than others and we get the same grade. Students switch groups every quarter, sometimes more than that. And the idea is that they're all learning from each other. They found with young adults that when one of them doesn't know something and they're working with their cohorts, they're much eager to try to understand it than working with an adult. So you'll hear them talking about today in group. Yes, they're working in small groups, but they're getting whatever work they're completing, that's their grade. There's no such thing as a group grade on that. Next slide, please. So that's just more of an example of social cognitive learning theories that, they observe each other and they complete it that way. Next one. These are the standards that we teach. California's always talking about switching them. Usually they or moving them around. Usually they just add more to it. So where we are for the next month isn't even on this. We're kind of recapping a bunch of 7th grade history about the colonies and whatnot. But the first one about, we break away from England. We have the American Revolution. We create our own government. Then the political system, whatnot. Then as America expands across the continent, then the Civil War, slavery, Reconstruction, and then we end right around the 1890s with the Progressive Era. So that's about where we go. It goes much more in depth than that, but those are the broad standards. Next one. Each chapter, we start with an essential question. So that's like the main overall question for each chapter. So the one we're working on right now is the very first one. How did Europeans explore and establish settlements in Americas? So that's really kind of what's the point of this chapter. We have smaller ones that we talk about each day, but that's the overarching idea. Your children, almost said your students, are going to start talking to you about these. And that's how you can help a lot in this class. If you can jump to the next slide, Ms. Kong. So how can you help your child better? Well, you can see, it'll be posted, everything's posted on Google Classroom, what we're going over, and you can see what the essential question is. Your children are going to start explaining these to you. They have to actually teach this to an adult. And so the way that you can really help them understand, if you just Wikipedia or look up whatever, that would be great, and just kind of not challenge them in a difficult way, but kind of ask them to expand more instead of just, the Europeans landed in the New World, the end. Well, you could talk to them about, well, what did the Spanish do that was different from the English and the French and so on. So you can tell with the parents who sometimes talk a bit more with their children that as they have to teach it and explain it, they're going to understand it a bit more. So that is one incredibly helpful way that you could participate. And the next slide. This is TCI, the textbook we use. These are called reading notes, by the way. So the standard textbook, it's all online, but what I really like about it is there's not one specific answer. They can come to a variety of different answers, conclusions, and it's history when we can all see there's general themes to it, of course, but we can all kind of focus on different areas. So there's not just one kind of hunting and pecking, how many colonies were there? It's more, well, why were the middle colonies different than the New England colonies and so forth? If you could show the next one.
Mr. Gamble,
Yeah.
start, okay, 30-second warning.
Oh my goodness, already? Okay, and then these would be their answers that they would answer in. So they can do some pictures, they can do some writing. Next slide. Sometimes we try to do recreations of things. I can't go into it more because I'm sure there's some students that will be watching this, but we really try to recreate history. So my point is, sometimes you might hear some stuff about, wait, the school might be doing what? If you could just give us a day or so to see if this is something that in the history class where we're trying to recreate a simulation, that would be great. Next slide. I think I'm almost done. My goal is for students to develop an appreciation for history. We used to say love history, but there's so few of us history nerds out there that is to just really kind of have an appreciation and understand that how often it doesn't repeat itself exactly, of course, but there certainly is a cycle. Everything is on Google Classroom, just like it's very similar to what Ms. Kong said. You can always find all the material there, what we're doing every day. We test, but the tests, like we're having one tomorrow, it's worth very few points. And I think I'm out of time, so I'm going to stop talking before Ms. Kong kicks me off. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gamble. And so now 8th grade English. This is like the best back to school night.
Next slide, please. So we're your two English teachers for the 8th grade. I'm Miss Torres. Ms. Casales will tell a little bit about herself in just a second. Next slide, please. So I've been teaching here at PGMS for 7 years, and it's my 22nd year teaching. I went to school back east and got my bachelor's degree and then my teaching credential here in San Diego. I'm from Connecticut, but lived in a bunch of other places, and I taught mostly high school before I came to the middle school. I did a short stint at a middle school in San Diego, but then I taught at a couple high schools in San Diego, and then San Benito High School, Seaside High, and then Marina High. Those are my 3 kids, a handful. Next slide.
Hi, I'm Miss Costales. This is my 18th year at PGMS, but 26th year teaching. And I'm from the Central Valley of California. I briefly studied fashion design at Fashion Institute and then went on to Fresno State. I majored in art, and then I switched to English, and then finally graduated with a degree in liberal arts. Been teaching English for 24 years and first year teaching art. And my daughter, Savannah, who just graduated UCSC, has a double psychology major with a 3.7 GPA. I just had to brag. Anyway.
Next. Okay, so some just general expectations for 8th grade. We find that students are not checking emails, and we really need them to do that. Sometimes they'll send an email to their teacher and then not even respond to the email that the teacher sends back. That seems to be a really common thing. I think email is not the thing. They'll check the social media like 12 times a day, but not their emails. So they've got to do that. They've got to check Google Classroom every day too, even if they're getting their work during class time, especially if they're absent, because, and especially both the stream and the assignment list, because sometimes I will post stuff in just the stream with attachments because I don't necessarily want it handed in online. And they can print it right off the stream, through that attachment and have it ready to go, or they can get a copy of it in class. So if they're absent, they should be doing all 3 of those things: emails, Google Classroom, in the stream, and the assignment list. And then also checking Synergy for their grades to see, what's going on there. We update our grades every 2 weeks. So if they're not seeing something there, then they need to make sure that they know how to submit that information to either Ms. Costales or to me. I use a daily calendar, which most of you saw this week, that has to be signed by you as a parent. And so they can always reach out to a classmate, so that they can get the information from them by just asking them what's on the calendar. They can also look at Week at a Glance, which is in Google Classroom, or the daily agenda, which is also noted in Google Classroom. So there's multiple opportunities for them to keep up to date on what's going on in our classes. they should also email the teacher using their district email if they have any confusion or if they need help. But the worst thing is to walk in class and go, I've been gone for 2 weeks. What happened? Because there's kind of no excuse for that. There's multiple avenues for them to find out what's going on. Next, you're up, Ms. Costales.
One more thing to add to that, we also have a semester-long plan, and you can check if you are going to be gone. You can check that at any time and see what you're going to miss and plan for that. So what your student is going to miss. So what we'll read this year, we're going to read some Steinbeck. In class, we're going to read the Pearl, and we're actually going to take a field trip while we're studying Steinbeck this year, a field trip all the way, far, far away to Cannery Row, and work on our photo essay from there. In January, February, we'll read the Diary of Anne Frank as we study the Holocaust. And then several excerpts throughout the year from Study Sync, different articles and speeches.
Okay, 30-second warning.
Oh, shoot. Okay. So just like 6th grade and 7th grade, we write literary analysis essays, inform explain essays, argument and narratives, possibly some extended paragraphs on excerpts from Study Sync, just so they get used to writing individual paragraphs as well as long essays. These are all necessary for the Common Core standards and for the SBAC, which happens in April.
Another important aspect is develop their speaking skills. So regular class participation, collaboration with peers, formal speeches. Ms. Torres uses Flipgrid. So it's a good way to develop those skills.
Listening skills as well kind of come from the speaking and listening, but that's an important skill that you all know that your children would benefit from practicing. So we do that a lot. We respond to others by repeating what's being said and providing feedback after listening to speeches so that specific feedback. There's the best way to reach both of us. Always within a day, you'll get a response. Thank you.
Thank you. Except I'm up again, I believe.
Yes, you
Yes,
are.
and thank you, Ms. Torres.
All right, so art. It's my first year teaching art. I'm so excited. It's what I started out in college doing, was studying art, and it's taken all these many years later for me to finally teach art. So I'm excited. Next. That's just more about me. I already said that. Some of the things that kids have been working on, you might have seen these at home. So they had to share 3 pieces of information about themselves and a self-portrait. I loved this one. I thought she shared a lot of different things about herself. So I can relate to her. Next. And then elements of art. We're working on elements of art. We're going to be creating a sketchbook. And they'll be putting this page in where we talk about line, shape, form, space, value, texture, and color. Some of the things we've done is a line and color study where they did the lines with the waves. They could do a land or sea, and warm colors in the sky, cool colors on land or on the sea. And currently we're working on Zentangles, so that's more about line and shape and several of the elements. Miss Collins. Oh, that's it. I thought I put another slide in there, but we're having fun in art and learning.
Thank you, Ms. Costales. So now we have Ms. Darcy Teninga.
Hi, I'm Darcy Tenenga. I am the foods teacher for the 8th grade foods class. I just have one 8th grade foods class. The rest of my classes are 6th and 7th grade mostly. Go ahead. Yeah. I've been teaching 12 years. This is my first year teaching foods though. My 6th year at PG Middle School. I've lived on the Monterey Peninsula since I was 9 and I graduated from PG High School. I'm passionate about crafting, baking, gardening, camping, and traveling. which is why I'm here in this class, because these are the things that I love. I'm excited to teach kitchen safety, cooking skills, and teach the students foods from different cultures. One of my rules in the classroom is safety, and I think that is probably the most important thing, both for in the kitchen, like physical safety, not burning yourself or cutting yourself, and also emotional safety. I really want my classroom to be a safe place for students to be able to come if they're having a hard time. Creativity is super important to me, so I am going to try to have my food students use their creative side within their cooking. You can go to the next slide. Since it's the first time I've taught this class, I'm not quite sure about how the months are going to work out. But right now we're working on learning about foods and cooking within the textbook and just starting to get them into the kitchen a little bit to explore and see what's in there. Because when they were in 7th grade home ec last year, it was virtual. So they haven't stepped foot in the school kitchen yet. We'll do a jam fundraiser September, October, and then going into the winter, we'll do Iron Chef, which is the kitchens compete against each other. So like I have a pear tree, so I can bring in bags of pears, and all 7 kitchens will compete against each other making different pear dishes. And then the teachers judge that. And then my ultimate goal is to do cafe, which is where the students serve the teachers a lunch and they learn how to cook it and serve a full like 4-course meal with drinks and everything. And we'll continue doing different fundraisers as well. You can go to the next slide. If your student's an active participant in the class, they'll get a passing grade. I don't have much homework. It's most of their work is going to be done in the classroom. It is an elective class, so I want it to be fun. Your student's going to definitely need to be hands-on and safe in the kitchen. That's a part of the grade. And then respecting each other and the space in the kitchen. I know that there's a lot of concerns about cooking with COVID. Masks are still mandatory inside by everybody, whether you're vaccinated or not vaccinated. So we'll be doing all of our consuming of foods and drinks outside, which makes it a little bit more complicated, but we're going to make it work. Yep, go ahead to the next slide. I'm posting all of the assignments on Google Classroom, and grades are going in Synergy. There's a donation list inside of Google Classroom. I don't require any materials for the class, and we do have a budget, but the budget's not huge. So to be able to cook every week, we have to do some fundraising. And I'm always looking for donations for different food items that you can find in Google Classroom, so we can keep cooking. Next slide. The best way to contact me is email. That's the best way. If you prefer phone, that works too. I do check my messages, or you can always have your student bring a note to the class. Let me see if I missed anything. Oh, I did forget one thing. Can I say one more thing? I think I have 20 seconds left. One of the big picture of foods class is to find recipes, adjust the yield, either make them bigger or smaller, understand what the directions are, plan what you're going to do, how long it's going to take, and then cook. So the steps, we might only be cooking on Friday because we have all these other steps that the kids have to understand first. Ta-da!
Wow, you really keeping time really well. Thank you, Mrs. Taninga. Oops. Okay, so now we have Ms. Gall.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ms. Gall, and I am the resource teacher and Learning Center 8 teacher. I also do Learning Center 7. And basically, I'll give you a little background. I got my undergraduate at the University of Northern Iowa, And then I went on and got my special ed credential at the University of Minnesota. And it was way too cold the winters. I couldn't handle below zero, which brought me to California in 2002. I pushed into Ms. Kong's Math 8 class and also Ms. Torres's English 8 class, but I'm also gonna recognize our support staff because they also support Mrs. McBride, Mrs. Costales, Mr. Gamble. Did I forget anybody? All of the academics, Ms. Hooper. So they support, they're in the class along with the gen ed teacher. And so there's 2 teachers in the classroom or an instructional assistant just to help all of the kids that might need additional help because we want to make sure students are understanding the content. So Ms. Hamill pushes into McBride's Science 8 class. Or no, Ms. Hamill actually pushes into Mr. Matlow's Math Support 8 class, and she was helping out Ms. McBride last week. Ms. Munson pushes into the Science 8 class and the Math 8 class for Ms. Hooper. Ms. Deal pushes into Ms. Costales' English 8 class and works together with Mrs. Costales. And then we also have Miss Sabrina that is in McBride's class, Science 8, and she also helps out Mrs. Costales. And then we also have Miss Edwards who pushes into Science 8 and History 8. So we really want to make sure we support all of the students. And then of course, we are also there to support students that are on 504s and IEPs, but every student is able to ask them questions or ask me questions just to make sure they understand the content. So if you have any questions, shoot me an email. Many of you know how to contact me if your student is in Learning Center, and I am happy to help any way I can.
Thank you, Ms. Gall. Okay, so I think we have everybody here, and it is already 6:56. I haven't heard anything from the main room, but I would urge you to, if you mouse down, you'll find a button in the bottom right that says leave room, and that's not leaving the meeting. So if you leave room and then in probably a couple of minutes or so, we will have our music section in the main room. Or if you do not have, if your student does not have music, then you're welcome to leave and have a great evening. Okay, goodbye.
See you guys.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
See you later.
Mrs. Kong, does music mean vocal music or is music band and orchestra?
I am not too sure. I just know there's just one section for music and which is happening soon.
Got it. I will check. Thank you.
I'm going to stop the recording.